Welcome to the podcast from Headhunters Northwest. Headhunters Northwest. Specialized recruiting, specialized approach, where we take you behind the scenes into our customers' businesses. For over 20 years, Headhunters Northwest has served the global defense, small arms, and shooting sectors worldwide. Listen in as we discuss the inner workings of our USA and international customers. Headhunters Northwest, finding you the best heads for business.
Hello, everyone. This is Shaylene Kiner. Welcome to another podcast episode with Headhunters Northwest podcast. I have been wanting to do this podcast for a long time, and I didn't tell Ben that when I asked him. But I've known about Ben and seen Ben and met Ben at trade shows, but we've never really had time to connect because, well, let's be honest. Ben is such a hot talent in our industry. He never needs a recruiter. So I am super excited for you guys, the listeners, and if you're watching this, to meet Ben Fleming, who is the president of Primary Weapons Systems and Lone Wolf Arms. And prior to this, Ben was a bigwig at BPI, and we'll go into that too. But welcome, Ben. Thank you. I didn't, admit to that, but it is all true.
I love it. I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind introduction as well. That means a lot.
Well, it's a great industry, and off camera, we were just talking about the people in our industry. And I know I say this a lot on our podcast, but I really believe it. It is a really special industry because it's really supportive of families and people's careers and even competitors helping each other. And you've been in the industry a long time. And I would love for people to hear about how you were not in the industry originally, just like all of us. We go get our experience somewhere and we land here and we go, home. This is where I need to be. But let's start with talking about your career and talk about, how did that begin and how did you end up getting where you are today? And let's kind of walk through that because it's really interesting.
I agree. And I think you're spot on in how you described it there. I went to university a long time ago, it seems like at this point. And when I graduated, I had just a mix of different things that I'd done along the way. I'm one of those weird guys that loves commission jobs. And when I was a kid, I was a door-to-door salesman. And it just, I love meeting new people. And I think what I didn't realize when I was younger is it really comes from my drive for relationship and connection. And that's not just connection that makes commission. That's any level of connection, connecting good people with other good people and developing long-term relationships with folks that grow. It just brings me so much joy. And so when I met a gentleman based out of Nashville where I live, and he had a shop that he ran here, a manufacturing business it's kind of based. We had an Illinois distribution center, and we sourced products from Asia and places like that. But we were mainly in the kind of the sporting clays and steel target business and things like that. A really cool family that had a rich background, just kind of this mechanical mindset. And they, if they saw something that was really cool, they would build it and make it their own. And so it was the innovation and the kind of the entrepreneurial spirit of this family was just super cool. And so he offered me a job, and that was my first entrance into the industry. And at first, like anything as a 20-something-year-old, just like, what? This is amazing. Like, people.
You get paid to do this?
Oh, yeah. I know you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one, people are like, what do you do for a living? I go work in the outdoor industry. Oh, how do you get to do that? And it's, and I know we all have our good days and bad days too. It's like any industry, but what an incredible space. And I certainly realized that right at first too. It was, really my first experiences of going to SHOT Show and working the buy group shows and getting to meet all of these people who I'm fortunate to still call friends and a lot of them coworkers. And I fell in love with it. And the thing that I fell in love with most of all was just that aspect of connecting with folks and getting them. You go to a retailer and you meet a buyer and you have a connection with this, with the buyer, and it grows into this really prosperous relationship together, and not just something that you're wishing each other happy birthday and you're checking on the kids, and you're there, you celebrate them when they shoot a great animal on a hunt, and it's really genuine, really loyal, and it's a level of connection that like you and I were saying before this, I don't think many industries share that same type of connection. But I do think that's really born from what we're in this industry for, which is, we love connection, we love the outdoors, we love conservation, we love, people getting together around a campfire and telling great stories, and it's no different, I feel like, than what it was, aside from the technology aspect, aside from what it was, decades and a century ago. And I've so enjoyed it, and I love what I've done. And so I worked in that job for, I was there for about 6.5 years, and I love, this about me. When I get to a place, I'm not the guy that likes to just fix a few things and hop to another spot. I really, it's family to me, and so I'm very loyal where I am, and I love that for that to be shared in a relationship that we grow because we love to see each other grow. And so I had another opportunity come along when BPI had approached me. I remember we were at a Biden group show, and Nate and Dudley had come up to me and just said, "Hey, kind of, we're at the bar afterwards," which, is kind of status quo for the end of a trade show day. And they came up to me and said, "Hey, are you interested in coming over to BPI?" And I was like, "What's BPI?" Very naturally. And so they told me a little bit about it, and we talked. I went down there and saw them, and at that time it was really just CVA, which is a great, kind of muzzleloading company, single shot rifles. They do accessories and muzzleloading bullets and stuff like that. And so, I mean, very honestly, right at first, I'm like, I don't know the first thing about muzzleloading. I've never shot a muzzleloader in my life, right? Why are you interested in me?
Yeah.
And so like anything in this industry, I guess, but that's how it starts. And I went down there and we hung out for a weekend and shot muzzleloaders. So I got to do that. And I just fell in love with the people and the culture. And it just was, it was kind of one of those times where I loved what I did before, but it was just a very natural time to move on to the next thing for no other reason than that. What's that?
What year was that?
That was 2011.
Okay, that's great.
Right, yeah, spring of 2011. So I hired on with BPI, and so at that point we had, like I said, CVA, and we had a small little barrel company at the time called Bergara Barrels that we were working to do OEM business, and we were working with a lot of other great manufacturers in the industry making barrels for them. And the one thing we could do is make a really, really fantastic barrel. And so we had something there, and we worked on that in the CVA side and grew that a bunch from 2011 to about 2013. And then we came up with this concept. We're like, what if we turn this barrel company into a rifle company? And so we went out and we pulled the thread on that a little bit. We decided to, look and see what that would look like. Well, could we do it? And everything but we made was, well, not everything, but the majority of it was made in northern Spain, in the Basque region of Spain, from our parent company that's based there. And so we got with them, and they're like, "What do you guys think about this?" And, of course they see the opportunity and where the industry was at the time. And it was just perfectly timed. I mean, I kid you not, it was just providence. Like it was, you couldn't have picked a better time.
To say you're so talented about helping drive this whole new brand. You're not good at bragging at all.
I love it.
Because it really did start with nothing, right?
The barrel side of it. And so, yeah, we got together and we said, let's make a rifle company. And slowly but surely, come 2015, we brought out Bergara Rifles. And that was, I got to be honest, that was the most fun I've had and the scariest times I've had in my professional career. And I think I shared this with you when we were talking on the phone, but
I
there
love
is
this.
this aspect of, you're sitting at a trade show and somebody says, what, how many do you want me to buy? And I'm like, please just buy one,
Yeah.
we can sell one today. And
Yeah.
that's our goal, as many as we can. But it was, to be at zero and to just kind of grow that with a great team around me. I couldn't have done it. There's no way I could have done it on my own. You know that. I mean,
Well, it's not a one. That's the beauty of everything, right? There's
Yep.
not a single business I can think of, including mine, that is done by one person. I have people behind the scenes helping me, like with these podcasts and all kinds of other resources. And when you have a great team, you can really accomplish a lot. I mean, when you left, and I don't want to jump that far ahead yet, but it was years. What were the sales for Bergara? Like, how exciting was that to go from zero to what?
Oh, when I left, we were doing a little north of 70 million.
Wow.
And
Isn't
so,
that something?
it's incredible. I mean, I
Wow.
really can't believe it. And to be a part of that, it's something that I'll hold close to my heart forever. I mean, what an incredible company. And our parent company in Spain and the folks in Lawrenceville, Georgia, 100%, there's no other way for me to say it except like they're family. And we went through all the good and the bad and the hard, and they're just incredible folks. And at that point, like you said earlier, I mean, everybody sticks together, and it takes each person, kind of committing to what they're doing and what the company's goal is to really drive that forward. And I'm so proud of what that team has done there. And it was, I think, very understandably and naturally, when I made that decision to go ahead and leave, it was, gosh, it was like, moving away to college and saying goodbye, saying goodbye to your
That's
family.
awesome.
It
When
was,
you worked there, and you were, obviously closer towards the end of getting to leave, talk to me about the structure of this company, because you were working with a lot of different parts of the company. You were no doubt working very closely with marketing, right? And you were, did you guys have we didn't talk about this ahead of time, so I don't even know the answers. Did you have an inside sales team, or did you have reps, or did you have a combination of both? I mean, how does that look in the industry?
so I had a national sales manager that worked with me inside. We had an in-house marketing team who was great. And our national sales manager was awesome. Just thought the world of him. Now, I'm going to be biased here because I love reps. I've worked with several rep groups, one of them in particular, since I came into this industry in the early 2000s and worked with them all along. And so I'm going to be very biased. I think they're incredible. I think that they go above and beyond to help brands. Really, I mean, if you think about it, it really just on a commission basis too. There's no ownership, there's no equity.
That's right.
They're juggling a lot of different companies and telling brand stories for a lot of different folks and doing it really, really well. And so I'm a big fan of independent rep agencies in this industry, and they don't get enough praise, but they certainly deserve it, and they will always get it from me.
Yeah. And that, for anyone who's listening that doesn't really understand how that works, there are rep groups in our industry, and most people probably do know this, but I think of them as like tentacles. They're out there covering the ground, and coming back in and, circling the wagons. And you guys at the manufacturers are teaching them about the new products. Here's what our new ideas are. And it's a lot of give and take, because they're giving you feedback on what the dealers have to say and what they need to be successful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they may go in and talk about Bergara and CVA one day, and they're talking about, 5 other brands at the same time. And that goes from fishing to archery to air guns to, hunting rifles. They've got a lot of information to be able to digest, and they're, they're pounding the pavement every day. They're getting in the truck and they're driving to all of those locations, a lot of times on their own dime. And it is just like anybody. I mean, that's a lot of time away from family, and they really do some incredible things. They are such a large portion of who we are as an industry, that really don't get talked about a whole lot.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know that on any of my podcasts we've sat and talked about that. So you're right. It isn't brought up as much as it should be. So that's a great thing to bring up. Now, when you were at BPI, were you only over sales, or did you interact with other departments, or how did that look?
So kind of CVA, I started as a national sales manager and then grew into vice president of sales. And then when Bergara started, I moved into VP of sales for Bergara. And then we kind of shuffled some folks over on the CVA side. So I had a counterpart that we just kind of worked together, but working to grow each one of those brands independently. And I did work with sales and marketing. We worked very hand in hand with new product development. I would go to Spain with our new product team and our engineers. We'd go over there several times a year. And it just, I'm the type of guy that, I love to throw stuff up against the wall and go, hey, we know what's going on. We got a great pulse in the industry. What kind of stuff should we chase here? And so you throw it out there, and knowingly you're going to reject, 98% of it. And you find those little kind of diamonds in the rough. And so we'd spend a good bit of time with marketing, with sales, with engineering, with new product development, with brand managers, with CEOs, and all kinds of people like that, both in Spain and here, and try to find those ideas that could take us to the next level.
That's great. Well, it's a very successful brand. And I know that the people you worked with at BPI you were very close to. And I, of course, remember that you reported to and worked with Nate Treadaway. Yep. I hope your ears are burning, Nate. And great guy, just a great guy. And then Nate had a great opportunity and jumped over to a U.S. manufacturing company here. And I was not surprised to see that at some juncture he said, "Hey, I need help." And what a great special thing to be asked to follow the guy that you reported to his new company. That is quite a compliment.
It really is. Yeah. And a good fit too, I think, for both of us. Nate and I, we did that together at Bergara. We worked super closely at CVA. When he was the president at CVA, I had just kind of come on board and really kind of filled some of those roles that he and Dudley had left off in the past. And I would just describe us as, the three of us together were, it's that old saying of our strengths complemented each other. And where I may have been a little bit weaker on one side, one of those guys was super strong. And we really created such a strong group of individuals. And Nate moved into that CEO role. And like you said, I wasn't surprised to see him jump on an opportunity like he did to go off and invest and buy into PWS and Lone Wolf. And it was, I think initially it was a sad goodbye, and let's keep in touch and we'll be good buddies in the industry. And honestly, it came. Maybe I'm a little bit naive here, but it came as a little bit of a surprise for him to come ringing on my door. Yeah, but I was grateful for it, and it's been a good fit, and what a great company, set of companies, really. Lone Wolf on its side and PWS on the other. What an incredible company.
Tell our listeners about what those two companies do, what products they produce, and share with us, because I don't know that I could accurately share that well enough.
Sure. And I'm realizing a theme here as I'm talking about this. I came into PWS also saying, like, I don't know anything about this, like, CVA with muzzleloaders. So obviously there's a common theme there, but the real joy that I've had in getting to know who both of those brands are. PWS is, I'll go out on a limb and say there is no better quality, more accurate rifle on the market in that genre of firearms than primary weapons. Just an unbelievable company. And I would say that Nate even carried over a lot of that ethos that we believed in how we started Bergara. Accuracy is key, quality control, telling of a genuine and authentic brand story. There's nothing could be more true of those two companies than that in itself. And I remember when I went out there for some interviews and shot some of those firearms, I was like, this is unbelievable. It was one of those rare moments where I actually kind of had a wow. I was like, wow, this is these that like they perform more
Yeah.
so than anything I could have ever imagined. And I think that added and packaged together with, the history that Nate and I had, plus the team that exists over at PWS and Lone Wolf, it was just a logical and real understandable connection that although in much of a different side of the industry, right? We went from
Yeah.
archery to fishing.
Yeah.
It feels like,
Yep.
you go into from hunting, kind of that hunting and shooting world more to or that, MSR kind of market. And
Yeah.
even the temperature of the industry and the seasons of it, you lose a lot of that. It's more of kind of a year-round business. And as you know, and I'm sure our listeners do, when it's good, there ain't nothing better in the industry than that. And it's hot,
Yeah.
and so, but when it's cold, it's tough, and you gotta really scrap for a lot of that stuff. And it definitely has more of those kind of those spikes and that volatility than I would say the hunting market does, or even the muzzleloading market
Yeah.
is very predictable, although
Yeah.
growing in different ways. But yeah, it's been predictable historically.
It is really interesting. I think people who don't work in our industry very long or have just joined us, they really underestimate how many niches there are inside our niche.
Yeah,
So it's not just the sporting industry, it's not modern sporting rifles, it's not hunting, it's all of it. And then there's all these niches, and all of those have their own cycle and their
right.
own season.
Absolutely. Now, yeah, that's a great opportunity to say, even within PWS, I mean, you look at that, and if you put it out there, and I held it up and showed everybody, that go, well, that's an AR, and looks like it. See, everything points to yes, and it is, but they're built, and the whole company's history is built around a long stroke piston system, which the AK uses the same thing. It's built around this very, very reliable, robust system that makes that firearm operate. So it's not, although it looks like a Me Too item, there's actually a ton of technology put into that, and a lot of engineering put into that actually makes it a good bit different. Now, to your point a second ago, that is even a subset within that category of MSRs or ARs.
Yeah.
And most of the manufacturers out there are doing direct impingement or DI guns and a lot of things like that. Although that is a larger market, PWS has stayed very faithful to kind of in their lane, so to speak, of being one of the best long stroke piston companies on the market.
Now, for our listeners, what's the website? Is that website? It's primaryweaponsystems.com, isn't it?
It's just primaryweapons.com.
Oh, primaryweapons.com. Okay, thank you. And then now, is Lone Wolf, are they just, what are they doing? What does that company do?
So Lone Wolf historically was a major parts manufacturer, in kind of, mainly in kind of the Glock components and Glock clone stuff. Back when 80% were a big deal, they were a fantastic source for 80%, and they've done. I mean, if you get on the website and look at it, it's everything. I mean, it's springs and triggers and all kind. I mean, everything that you could imagine, it's there. And I will say, when it comes to kind of a very quiet, strong company, Lone Wolf is one of them. Not everybody in the world knows about them, but it's one of those where you're like, oh yeah, check out this company, and then you're like, oh, I've seen them before.
They're very under the radar. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I lived 20 minutes from there.
Oh, really?
Before I moved, and I lived in North Idaho, just very close to Lone Wolf. So,
what a pretty area!
I
love going out there. It's so great. Look, when I hired on, I remember going to visit and meeting the team, and honestly, one of my first thoughts was, this brand has the most potential of any brand that I've walked into in the last little while. I mean, PWS is great, and it's in a different area, but Lone Wolf, it is such an incredible brand when it comes to components and barrels, and now they're making complete pistols. So we've got, I mean, gosh, when you look up at the SKUs, I mean, there's 10, 12, 15 different SKUs or more of complete pistols that are on that kind of Glock 19, Glock
Wow,
17,
that's
Glock
great.
19X, that kind of stuff. So like anybody in this industry, Glock's done an incredible job, and they've created, I mean, they're like the Scotch tape of
Yeah.
handguns, I mean,
Right.
just
Yeah.
they are the staple brand. And we do, what I love about what Lone Wolf has done is they created something that is, it looks like it feels like it is kind of considered a Glock clone. But on those models, we actually did a 1911 grip angle. So when you pick that complete pistol up and you
Yeah.
feel it, I love a 1911 personally.
Yeah.
I'm very biased on that. That's one of my favorite firearms ever. And so when I picked that up, I'm like, oh, this is what we're talking about. Like it is
You're home.
great.
Yeah, that's what I carry when I walk around out here in we're out on the reservoir here. There's plenty of grizzlies and all kinds of other things. I mean,
Right.
I probably should be like you guys and carry those big cannons, but I think I'd just fall down on my butt if I tried to shoot one of those. Yeah, nothing like a 1911 in your hand, because you got something and it's not going anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's cool that you guys are making those. Now, where do you sell your Lone Wolf products? Can they buy them from dealers? Can people buy them online? What are you guys doing with that?
That would be a yes to both. We do
Okay.
sell online, and we've got a great dealer network too. We've got buy group members all across the country that stock it just at the dealer level. We actually just got set up and we're selling into Bass Pro and Cabela's at this point.
Great.
So they'll have frames and slides and barrels and complete pistols and all of that stuff here in the next, we're honestly this week we're shipping their first shipment out. So I've worked with those guys over there for a long time. I think the world of them, all the way back to the Cabela's days and the old Bass Pro team before they even got together. And what a great group of people. Yeah. And so when I came over here, they were one of the first people that I went and talked to, and they've, again, going back to those relationships, it's some of those just loyal, very friendships, I mean, it's just at that point you're dealing with friends. And the reality is people do business with people that they really like to do business with. And that there's no truer, thing than that. And in our industry, it thrives on that. And, and I've said all along, I mean, I've had reps who were reps with me for a while, and all of a sudden they're at a buyer at, a major retailer or distributor. It's, those relationships are meant to keep going, and things can get hard. Competitors can get competitive at times. And, I think at the end of the day, though, it's one of those industries where we can very, very peacefully all get together at in a ballroom, at a party, or, a cocktail hour at a trade show, and everybody's just glad to see everyone else. We're in it for the same reason.
Yeah, it is that great. Now, are there any relationships and partnerships you guys are looking for as far as industry or non-industry? And I didn't ask you this ahead of time. I didn't think to do it. But as PWS and Lone Wolf keeps evolving, because, I mean, with you and Nate there and the good people in North Idaho and Southern Idaho, this is just your relationship is key is an understatement. So,
for sure.
I'd want to work with you if I were one of these other manufacturers, looking for a partner or OEM. I don't really know, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are there some partnerships you're looking to build here to strengthen those brands?
I would, that's always a yes for me. Even some that I don't even know about yet.
Yeah.
But I in that specific segment of the business, components, those are big Lego kits for a lot of adults, so you're pulling something off and putting something else on. And so it's important for us to, holster compatibility, slings and optic mounts and all kinds of stuff. So we're constantly trying to evolve with the industry, and where, if Magpul brings something new out, we want to make sure it's compatible with our stuff. If a Men 2 is bringing out some of the great products like they're bringing out, we're trying to utilize those.
Idaho.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. We're trying to utilize those and make sure they're compatible with our products. And so I would say that's always evolving and trying to grow. We realized we had like a small cut. These are some of the old models on one of our Lone Wolf slides that just had a little trouble locking up in one specific holster at that. And so we shifted how we did that on future models, and in that made all the difference. And so it's just trying to keep up with that compatibility. But you know as well as I do, I mean, with the amount of new caliber introductions and all the innovation coming into our business, and it's a constant juggling of meeting new people and making sure that it works.
Yeah, forget sleeping. You have to keep up on who's releasing what.
Yeah.
Well,
and some examples would be, 8.6 blackout, Hornady's bringing out that 338 arc. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, like we've got to react to this. And some of it at times can be really hard to build around. And it's, our engineers are talking to their engineers and trying to figure out what do we need to do with the barrel here? And what do we need to do with, it's just a mix of all kinds of different things, but that's our job. And even when I was with Bergara, I mean, same thing, centerfire hunting calibers come out and you better be ready to do it, because that's what they're going to want.
Yeah. And it's not a boring industry to be in. People may step back and say nothing changes, but it does change. And look at these new calibers, for example. There's all kinds of ways that all these companies are trying to innovate. And when you're supplying parts and you're making products that are as reliable and excellent quality as what you guys are, there's constantly tweaking and changing and updating to keep up. It's a lot.
Undoubtedly. Yeah. I feel bad for our engineering team, and I'm so appreciative of them at the same time. Like I said about reps, they are the ones in the background who make it all happen. And most of the time they're not even sitting there at all the buying group shows, and they are at SHOT Show usually. But a lot of these shows, people are like, great job. And those are the people that should get the pat on the back, not me. They were the ones who did all of the work.
It takes a lot of people to make this stuff work. Well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast, Ben. Thank you. I do think you have a really interesting background. And now here you are, the president of these two companies. And I have no doubt your career will continue to grow. But if if anyone's listening to this, you should reach out to Ben. We'll no doubt include his LinkedIn profile somewhere so you can reach him that way, and check out PWS and Lone Wolf and their products. And thank you again, Ben, very much for taking the time to share with us about all of the things you've done in this great industry. It's a blessing to know you, and thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you, Shaylene. I feel the same. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thanks for having me. And that's it for this episode of the Headhunters Northwest podcast. We'll be talking to you again next week. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Headhunters Northwest podcast. Specialized recruiting, specialized approach. You can reach out at headhuntersnw.com or call 605-600-1709. Join us again next week as we look behind the curtain into the global defense, small arms, and shooting sectors. Headhunters Northwest, finding you the best heads for business.